Clerk, please call the roll.
Good morning, everyone. It is now 11:07 a.m. Calling the roll for the Monday, March 2nd Board of Control meeting. We have Nan Baker. We have Jim Boyle as an alternate for Dale Miller. Present. We have Trevor Macular serving as an alternate for Dan Brady. We have Dave Marquardt serving as an alternate for Mike Dever. We have Lee Tucker serving as an alternate for the fiscal officer. Here. We have Lenora Lockett. Here. And we have a quorum.
Thank you. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes of the February 24th meeting? Are there any comments, concerns? Hearing none, I'll take a motion for a passage.
Move for approval of the minutes.
Do I have a second? Seconded by Councilwoman Baker. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Minutes passed. Do we have any public comment?
Comment at this time.
Okay. First item.
The first item is item number BC 2020-157, Department of Development, submitting an amendment to a contract with Heights Community Congress for fair housing services for the period April 1st, 2018 through December 31st, 2019, to extend the time period to September 30th, 2020, and for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $21,250.
Good morning, Sarah Parks Jackson with the Department of Development. This is the second of our fair housing contracts that we're bringing forward as an amendment to September 30th. That additional time allows us to get a new RFP out in the new ERP system and to solicit additional vendors to provide our fair housing, which is required by HUD in the acceptance of our federal dollars.
Any comments, questions? Okay, hearing none, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The next item is a two-part item, item number BC 2020-158, Department of Information Technology, submitting an ERP exemption on requisition 47961, which will result in an award recommendation to Integrated Precision Systems, Inc. in the amount not to exceed $70,370 for bidirectional data interface enabling data exchange between the InfoTime and attendance system and the Galaxy control system. And it's for the period March 2nd, 2020 through March 1st, 2021, and B, recommending the award in connection with said RP exemption.
Good morning, Janelle Green on behalf of the Department of IT. So this item is for an interface to tie the data between the Galaxy control system, which is the badging system we have for to get building access, to the Infor time and attendance system, just to make sure that data gets to and from each of those systems. Right now, it's a manual process for someone in payroll to call over to the badging department at the sheriff's department to say that someone's either terminated or hired. So with this interface will allow that data to transfer seamlessly, so that way terminations will be processed sooner as well as new hires.
Questions? Councilwoman Baker?
Okay, was this an unexpected cost?
From what I gather, it was a forecasted item. Some of the interfaces, were actually budgeted in the original budget, but in terms of this particular item, I'd have to ask Jack to come up.
No, this has been on our forecasted numbers. This is Jack Ryan, ERP Program Director, sorry. This has been on our forecast for some time. We're just now getting the contract in place so we can get the work done.
So if this is not an unexpected cost, why can't this be part of what we've already included in our ERP project? And if not included in the ERP project cost, why not the contingency fund that's there to take care of those expenses that were not part of, for whatever reason, given it's not an unexpected cost, wasn't part of the project to begin with?
Well, there's to both questions, I guess. Excuse me. Again, we're reserving that contingency at this point still for Infor-related cost, and we don't have those numbers yet at this point in time. I think your second question was, it was part of our forecast, but we still have to contract for this. So it was included in our total forecasted numbers, along with interfaces, but we still obviously have to put the contract in place to get the work done. Not sure if I answered your question correctly.
Well, I guess we keep adding more cost to the ERP project and they're not surprises. They're things, I mean, this sounds like absolutely, you can't be making a phone call and getting a badge made when we have an ERP project that should be seamless. It doesn't seem like that is a out of the box, requirement. So I guess I'm just asking, why are we spending another $70,000 in doing this when I would think it would have been part of the project to begin with, which it does sound like it was, and isn't included in the total that we're already are paying for. I guess and I understand the contingency piece of wanting to save it for the Infor, but what's going to happen is we're going to say, well, we have enough in our contingency to cover the Infor, so we're within budget and on time, but actually we're not, because there were a lot of other incidental costs that should have probably been taken away from the contingency, and which I know would then stress the contingency fund for not being there for the Infor cost, but that's just the reality of what we're paying for. I mean, I guess I just don't understand why we have to take another $70,000 out of the general fund for an ERP need that is not a surprise and isn't in the budget as we already have accounted for. I guess that's my problem.
It was, excuse me, to be clear about what I was saying, it was in the original, I don't know about original, but it's been in the budget forecast that we've been presenting. We just are choosing not to take it out of the contingency fund at this time till we hear from Infor on the payroll workforce management extension at this point. Okay, we do need to get the work done, just in terms of timing, to get the interface in place. So we had anticipated it. We had included it in the forecast. We just hadn't contracted for the work. We had to get the design work done and get the specifications before we could let the contract for this.
And I'll just try one more. So if we understood that this was needed and we knew that this estimate would be approximately this amount, we just hadn't paid for it yet, why wouldn't it be in the amount that has been projected to us for the overall cost of the ERP that we have approved so far? Why was this taken out of that estimate of what we would have to pay for, and now coming to the Board of Control to pay for something that we all knew was going to be needed? It's not an over-the-top request as far as the usage of it. I guess I just don't understand why that $70,000 wasn't part of the original estimate of what it was going to cost to get the ERP done.
I can't speak to the original estimate on this, I suppose. I know that at least since I've been involved in this has been included in at least what we had forecasted. We didn't have the specific number, but we certainly had allocated money for interfaces, including interfaces of this type in our overall cost. So this will not increase our overall bottom line cost of the ERP program. It's part of that, of what we had forecasted. Okay.
So
I don't know
can I add a follow-up question?
I'm trying to answer the question. I'm not sure if I'm getting there.
So, Councilwoman Baker's point, we're currently at, I think, the $34.2 million ERP project is the latest budget proposal that you submitted to council.
Right.
This $70,000 is included in the $34.2 million?
Yeah, we have it in those forecasted numbers.
Okay, I think the response to the advanced question is what was confusing myself, at least, when the response was this is an additional ask. It really isn't an additional ask if it's included in the $34.2 million.
It's not. Yes, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to.
Yes, it's kind of one of those questions where it is, but it isn't. So that's why I think Jack had the difficulty with answering, because for original forecast, it wasn't in there. But for the budgets that we presented, at least for the last couple of months, that $70,000 has been included in that.
So
yes,
and this I think would Is this going to require OBM to put another $70,000 on a fiscal agenda, or is that already in your appropriation for 2020?
That was already in the request.
Okay, so it's covered then. It's not an additional request. That's what
was misleading.
All right, I apologize.
And then is
Didn't answer
this will this be an ongoing contract that we're going to have every year?
Well, this is for development of the interface. I don't know if there's a maintenance contract on this.
No,
I don't have those numbers.
from what I recall from that, it's just the time and materials work for them to do the 3 phases of getting this set up. From what we gather, there hasn't been a maintenance agreement. I think that if we make any changes to it, it will have to do some changes to the interface.
So if we don't make any changes come March 2nd of next year, we're not going to require an ongoing maintenance contract with IPS?
At least not from what I've been made aware of.
I don't believe so. I don't believe so at this time. We haven't pursued
Can
one.
we just get confirmation on that, because that
Sure.
would be a number that we should include in our ongoing ERP costs.
Okay, we can validate that for sure.
Councilwoman
Okay, so
Baker.
I just can wrap up here. So the question is this an additional ERP installation expense? The answer should have been no.
Should have been no to the bottom line. I wasn't quite sure
Okay, thank
how
you.
to answer that. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Boyle.
On a bit of a different, same topic, but when did we know that we were going to need this service?
I suppose it probably goes back at least 6 or 7 months, something like that. I'm not sure exactly, but something like that. So we didn't know the details and the specific cost until we actually went through design.
We knew the need existed.
We knew the need was there until we got to a certain point in the workforce management implementation. We couldn't get the design and let the contract.
Okay, and so this is an exemption, right?
I'm not sure what exemption means.
Process, yes, it is an exemption.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and did we not have time to seek out other entities, or I'm just,
Well,
what I'm trying to figure out is we want to have an open process so that other entities can delve into the county businesses. And so if we knew that this need existed months and months ago, and now we're here with an exemption, I'm not.
If your question is, should this have been competitively bid? Is that the question? And I think in this case, that the IPS is the company that maintains the entire Galaxy system. Okay, and so they currently, unless we're going to change out that entire system, they are the most logical people. They have all the details. They're the people that maintain that across the board.
And presumably their response to the RFP or Q would reflect that intricate knowledge that they already have.
Yes, sir.
But we didn't do that. We didn't bid it.
Well, we did not competitively bid it, just because they had intimate knowledge of the system. The belief was that they could get the work done the fastest and most expeditiously.
Mr. McAleer.
Jack, would it be possible to get a list of upcoming contracts that are included in the $34.2 million but has yet to be approved?
Sure, we can do that.
That will help then in 3 months when there's another item, that we know it's included in the overall budget and at least what council members can expect of what would be coming.
Absolutely. This week, as a matter of fact, we are reviewing all items that could potentially result in a change order, as well as those that are within our forecasted budget. So we expect to have that entire picture pulled together certainly by the end of this week. We're meeting with Infor on those topics. Part of the whole methodology here is as we go through design, we will identify things, and the thought process is that we bring those individually to Board of Control so that they would be fully transparent and fully visible to the members. So that certainly, to your point, Trevor, we have a list of things that we're reviewing. Some of those will be presented, and some of those we'll decide not to do. And obviously our intent is to do as little as possible and still get the job done.
And then just to Jim's questions about not bidding this, the backup material provided why, but says this saves the county money on this project. I just don't know if we can say that because we don't know if another vendor would have been cheaper.
I guess we don't absolutely know that another vendor would have been cheaper. I can't believe another vendor would have been faster in terms of trying to get this done on time to meet our schedule. So, just because it would require intimate knowledge of that system.
I mean, Jack, you did say that we knew about this 6 to 7 months ago. If we did a procurement process, we could have had a vendor sooner. So I just don't know for the backup material. I just don't think we can make that claim without knowing because we didn't do a procurement process.
Okay.
Any other comments? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve?
Move for approval.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Thank you.
Next item, item number BC 2020-159, Department of Law, recommending an award on requisition 47988 and enter into a contract with BJGMD Inc. in the amount not to exceed $4,950 for independent medical expert and record review services for various personnel injury litigation cases for the period September 17, 2019 through September 16, 2020.
Morning, Greg Huth with the Law Department. This is a contract for professional services. We relied on a medical expert to help us out with some personal injury cases we've been handling. He reviewed medical records for us, made some recommendations regarding questioning, and provided a report, an expert's report on it. It's my understanding that the only reason we're here today on this part of the agenda is because we didn't get our encumbrance number back in 2019. So I have no idea why that happens. We started in October, but here we are.
Any questions?
And Greg, just to follow up from the advanced questions, no payments have been made to the medical expert?
Correct.
Mr. Boyle?
But have the services been done? Have any services been performed that we just haven't billed out yet?
Correct.
Gotcha.
Service is complete. Mm-hmm.
Any further comments or questions? Hearing none, do I have a motion for passage? Do I have a second? All in favor?
Thank you.
Next item, item number BC 2020-160, Department of Health and Human Services, Community Initiatives Division, Family and Children First Council, submitting an amendment to a contract with Case Western Reserve University on behalf of the Begun Center for Violence Prevention, Research and Education and the Center of Innovation Practices, Mandel School of Applied Social Sciences, and it's for evaluation services for various programs for the period January 1st, 2019 through December 31st, 2019, to extend the time period to December 31st, 2021, and for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $360,000.
Good morning, Kathleen Johnson from Family and Children First Council. This is for our evaluation of all of our programs. For Family and Children First Council, we have 6 programs that are evaluated by CASE, and they also cover our service coordination part of our office. The 6 programs are out of school time, our youth internship program, our teen pregnancy and prevention program, again, service coordination, our families and schools together, and our youth advocacy and leadership program. The contract is reduced by $100,000 for the next 2 years as we are moved the money from our the specialty services for Dr. Shepler for the service coordination program, but we do need to keep them on to help us with our money for the multi-service kids, for the money that we got from the Governor Mike DeWine for the relinquished custody kids to help us advise our service coordination team. The contract is for $360,000 and it is for 2 years.
All right, any comments, questions?
Just a comment. In the supporting documents, I think it references that there was an RFP issued in 2013, and another one, I assume another one, or at least a follow-up in 16.
No, sir. We had got permission to not do an RFP because Case was the only agency or vendor who had applied, and because of the specialty with the service coordination with Dr. Rick Shepler, we were allowed to do an exemption. So this is a contract amendment from that exemption from that time.
Right, and okay, that's exactly what I thought. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Woman Baker?
Yes, and except for, we understand that the budget hearing was in November and contract was sent to the vendor December 2nd, but there were quite a few interruptions as to why this couldn't have been more timely in getting this to us. Do you feel that some of this has been resolved and that you have a better pipeline of being able to get contracts to us on time?
Yes. So what we would recommend is that knowing when it's a Inspector General renewal, to make sure that a person who is in the office to know that if it goes to a new person, to either track that person down or to make sure we know ahead of time to track the either person down or to make sure to have them do the renewal way in advance, because that took like 3 weeks for it to be done, and we had no idea that it would take that long to track that person down, and they wanted to pay with a check and then a credit card, so that took another 2 weeks. It was just everything that could go wrong with this contract renewal actually went wrong, so we do apologize for that, but we really did try to get it done on time.
So understanding that you know what to do next time.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have that written in some kind of policy or guidelines so that if you were to leave or get sick and you understand the issues, that you don't need to depend on a person, that you have something in writing that tells them what to do in case this happens?
Yes, it's myself and one other program officer and our director in our office who generally does the contracting for our office. So, and we have a lot of communication with the three of us to make sure, so we know next year. And we also did contracts for 2 years so that we wouldn't have to come every year for this, but generally, so we have that written down, yes.
You do have it written so that if someone were to replace
I have
you,
notes all over my desk.
or all three of you were to get sick, that things don't just stop or.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Anything further?
Just a comment. My wife works for Case, so I'm just going to recuse myself. It has nothing to do with this contract.
Leaves us with enough. Okay. Inspector General, do you want to?
Thank you. Mark Griffin, Inspector General. Just a word about our process, which is every year we review the contractors whose registration is going to expire. We have a 4-year registration process. And so we send 3 postcards every year because we know that people do change. And so in addition to the emails that go to a particular address, we sent to the Begun Center a postcard in August, one in October, and another in December, informing them that their expiration was going to come up. And so so we've done that, and then there are emails that are in addition to that as well. My understanding is that they ultimately found out about this, and that at least our records show that on February 6th was when they almost completed our process, with the exception of paying the registration fee. And one of the things that we've done to make it easier is we put it online so that people don't have to come for an in-person ethics training. But so their process, except for the check, was done on February 6th. We got an email on February 13th indicating that they were having issues. We then referred that to our IT people to fix that. So the very next day after we heard about it, they were fully registered. So so we do try to make sure that that institutions are informed, not just people, because we realize that there is changeover, and that once it came to our attention, they were registered within 24 hours.
May I?
Yes,
May I ask?
Councilwoman.
So the alerts that you gave them in August, October, and December, along with emails, that was not effective?
Apparently not. We have about 2,400 registered contractors. And, there are some that have issues, but the vast majority have not had this problem. And so for those others, the process has been effective. So I don't know what happened with the Begun Center or Case, that they were different than others.
Okay, Thanks.
Anything additional? Hearing none, I will take a motion for approval.
So moved.
Do I have a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Item approved.
Thank you.
With one recusal.
With one recusal, I'm sorry, yes.
Moving on to the consent agenda item numbers BC 2020-161 through 162.
Are there any comments, questions? Mr. McAleer?
Just on 161, for the payment response on the reason why we have to terminate the contract with Judith is, hi Sarah, can you talk a little bit more about that? And then I know it's not related to this contract, but do you have an update by chance if the GALs were paid late last week?
So I'll start with the Sarah Baker with Juvenile Court. So I'll start with the item here at hand with Ms. Kowalski. We decided to terminate the agreement with her based upon her dissatisfaction with how quickly she was getting paid. Typically with our contracts, you know, they submit an invoice and it could be 4 to 6 weeks before they actually get a physical check in their hand. She would submit an invoice and maybe only 2 weeks later, she'd be calling multiple staff at the court. She was calling the law department. She was calling the fiscal office. Where's my payment? Where's my payment? And we kept trying to explain, you know, it takes some time for checks to be cut. At that time, the end of the year shutdown was going on and then transitioning over to the new ERP. So there was other factors at play that made the payments take longer, but she just wasn't able to accommodate how long it was taking the payments to go through.
May I ask a question about that before we go into the GAL?
Yes.
So, and I apologize, but as it relates, I'm sorry, Nan. The original was it like an hourly submission? I'm getting at why would we need to terminate it as opposed to if she wasn't satisfied, just not do the work and she wouldn't submit any bills?
They were paid hourly, so she would submit an invoice each month.
Right.
And we did have the option to just not schedule her, you know, to come into the resource center. But based upon the way she was handling it and the way she was dealing with court staff and then calling down here as well, very disrespectful, right. We decided the better course of action in this case was to exercise the termination clause for convenience. All right, and then as it relates to the contract, presumably at the time we entered it, we needed or believed we needed the 3 individuals. Yes. And now we're down to 2. Mm-hmm. Do you have a comfort level that the remaining 2 will be able to complete all the work? So far, I think so. Okay. And this is associated with a grant, so we're actually hoping to reapply for this grant. And if we are awarded a secondary grant for this project, we actually plan to issue another RFQ to see if we can't get any other attorneys who might be interested in participating. All right. Thank you.
Councilwoman Baker?
You may have said this, but how late were we in paying her?
Like I said,
a week, 2 months?
She ended up being paid for sure. I can specifically remember the one invoice she submitted that was for $333 that she was calling after 2 weeks of submitting. So she did get a check within maybe 5 weeks. She was paid, but it was at the 2-week mark of even just mailing it to us that she was upset that she had not been paid yet.
So it wasn't a 60-day or 90-day, or it wasn't really pushing it out there. Mm-mm. It was within the 30 days for the most part that she would be paid. Okay.
And then you had an additional question?
I just don't know. Do you know if the GAL checks were cut late last week?
You were hoping that we'd gotten past that.
It's hard to get past.
It's very hard to get past that issue at hand. My understanding is that the court had sent down, since the new ERP was up and running, we sent down hundreds and thousands of the fee bills. And it is my understanding that there was a stack of about 1,000 that was found here. So it is my understanding that people were going to work tirelessly, and a lot of people were assigned to start putting the checks in or putting the payments in so that the folks could be paid. I know when I had looked haphazardly at the tail end of last week, I was looking and just typing in some of our common JAL, some of the attorneys that we're constantly working with, and their payments were not in at the tail end of last week. And quite frankly, most of our other payments with just our contracted vendors for youth services or employee reimbursements and things like that, those also had not been paid. So, and that was maybe Thursday or Friday of last week I had looked. So there was some, but definitely we're not where we need to be.
And we'll follow up with them today. Thank you.
Are there any additional questions for the consent agenda, Councilwoman?
Can I ask just another question on that?
Mr. McAleer?
Sorry, I don't know if you know this, but Jim brought up a good
Yeah,
point.
I think there was an issue, may not be specifically GAL and public defender team getting into their realm, but I think that there's an issue relative to reimbursement if they're not submitted. I believe it's within 90, is it 90 days?
I'm more than happy to. I came over here specifically to address this, actually. Okay. Mark Buds, our Office of the Public Defender, and I guess I'm representing the Ohio Public Defender at the same time. Fiscal year for the Ohio Public Defender begins in July. After their first half of the year, they found a surplus in their reimbursements. So they have upped their reimbursement from 70% to 85% for all assigned counsel fees, for the operating services of the Office of the Public Defender. Those reports have to come in monthly. They have 30 days from the end of the prior month to report this, or they get zero. So I wanted to come here today to make it clear that if we're not reporting properly to the Ohio Public Defender the expenses of our office or the assigned counsel fees, we'll get nothing. There's a lot of money involved. So we need to make sure that we're on top of that. And it is 30%. 30 days.
And I apologize. It's been a long time since I practiced law, and my clients are probably better off because of that. But with that being said, I think there's a time frame from completion of the work that the fee bill has to be submitted. I'm pretty sure of that. So you can't hold on to them and submit them all at the end of the year.
No.
Correct.
All right.
Correct.
So the time frame from completion of the work, there will necessarily be a lag in, maybe you don't come down and file them for another week or so. When does the 30 days start? Is it from when it's filed with the court?
I believe it's from the date of disposition.
Okay.
That is 90 days that the attorneys have to submit the fee bills, if that's what you're asking.
That's what I was asking. Okay.
The county has 30
days.
30 days from the end of the month that they were reported.
Okay.
The checks cut today. You have until, it's March already, so do the math. By May 1st, they better have that report.
Okay.
Or they're not getting reimbursed for it.
And that's a tight.
They, meaning the county.
And I know that a lot of the bills that had not been paid that we had sent in were from December, so I'm guessing that we've probably already lost the reimbursement for those.
I'm sorry, were you going to say that's a tight window?
Well,
yeah. The ERP system should be able to cover that. I mean, if there's a financial reporting system that has all this stuff in it, it shouldn't be an issue.
Well, correct. I think we'd agree that it shouldn't be. I mean, we'll find out soon enough. But what I'm more concerned with, what at least I'm hearing, is that we may already be in a situation with the state public defender reimbursement that we're already losing. If I'm hearing that December's haven't been paid out, and Mark, if I'm correct, we're in that time where the state has already told us that window, that time frame is already in place.
Right, unless someone in the fiscal office communicated to the Ohio Public Defender and essentially asked for continuance or additional time, explain the situation. I'm not privy to that information. Right. I'm actually not privy to any of our fiscal information because they don't give us access to ERP report. We're a non-executive agency. We don't have that kind of access.
Mr. McAleer.
Sir, would it be possible to get us a list if there are ones that you think we lost reimbursements for? Is that something that you would be able to get?
I can check and see.
Okay, thank you.
Question.
Well, first, let the record reflect that Councilman
Dale
Miller
Miller.
has, Councilman Miller?
Could you also provide us information on exactly what the rules are regarding the state reimbursement? I mean, what's the timeline requirement? What determines
Yes,
you've lost your eligibility for reimbursement?
I will get the timeline for you.
Okay.
If I may.
Yes, Councilwoman.
That, do we have a safety net? Do we have a process in place that triggers when we're getting close to that 30-day deadline?
I know that on our end, we know what our deadlines are, so the folks that are processing the fee bills, they know that they have, X amount of days for the courtroom to get it, and the courtroom only has this time, so they're contacting the courtroom. So we're trying to stay within the timeline as much as we can on our end.
Yeah.
And then once we process the fee bills and we send them down here, that's kind of where we lose control over them.
So the ones we missed in December, how did that how did that fall through the cracks? Where'd the breakdown? Is that in here when it got past your?
Part of the issue is just the normal everyday or every annual shutdown at the end of the year where we couldn't send things down. And then compounded with when we only had until mid-January to voucher and get checks cut for any other service. So we could only voucher for a short window of time. And then we were basically unable to voucher or pay bills for 2 weeks to a month. And then it was, the new system came on board, so we're trying to learn. We're trying to get assistance from folks on how to even use the system and things like that, and how to get the forms. And as soon as we were able to, we started sending them down. And we had 5 people working overtime trying to get the fee bills completed, and we would sign just stacks and stacks and send them down. And apparently they just were not processed.
So I understand all that. I guess I'm just asking for future. Do we have a better system that it's beyond the downtime of December and the bogging down of how many requests are made? And I mean, to lose money that we're supposed to be reimbursed for is not good, right? I mean, that's not good.
No.
So
And it is
somehow we have to come up with a very tight schedule, barring all the reasons why it didn't work, and come up with a reason how we can make it work.
And like I said, it's my understanding that we have what we call like a GAL tracker system. So it's a software system that was developed at the court. So we have the timelines in there, and we know that we're getting them done according to when the timeline needs them done. But I think it was just the combination of end of year and new ERP that really was very problematic this year.
Okay, so we shouldn't hear this anymore.
I sincerely hope not.
Okay.
But for the Office of the Public Defender, we have absolutely no control. The fiscal office and the auditor reports all of our expenses. If they're not properly reporting, it's on them. It's not on the Office of the Public Defender. I want to make sure we're clear that this has nothing to do with our office. It's
right.
The executive
So if it's not the
offices.
courts and it's not you, then it sounds like it's the fiscal office. So how can what are the safeguards when it leaves the courts and gets to our control?
Again, I can assure you that we are reporting properly. But again, we got caught in the end of the year and then go live with the ERP. We also brought in more people to process once we were able to go live, and they said yes. We brought in additional help from other departments to help, but again, the training was few, and we had labs open that people were able to go and learn the system. So that all kind of slowed down the process. I don't believe this should happen again in the future. It just was a combination of going live and shutting down for 2 weeks. And
Right. To be clear, for the Office of the Public Defender, there were a number of reconciliations in 2019. The Ohio Public Defender will no longer accept reconciliations and their monthly reporting. They have a budget that they have to project for. And us sending excessive charges at the end of the year does not help them in their preparations or planning.
Okay, so then I think in the future, we need to sit down and
That this could get deep. They have made a number of attempts to reach out to our fiscal office. And,
okay, well, I have made a note to talk to Mr. Chambers upon his return.
I appreciate that.
As you know, we had a change in that as well, so.
I appreciate that.
Did you want to comment on your item for the travel? I think
It was actually that I reported it at 70%. It's actually up to 85%, barring the fact that we reported on time, and I trust that we will.
And that's just because the rate changed.
Correct. Correct.
Is there any issue with the fiscal office that this would not be reported on time?
Not that I'm aware of, but I'm going to look into that.
Okay.
I have all the faith in the world. I believe that it will be reported.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah. Any other comments on the consent agenda? Good.
Thank you.
Okay, do I have a motion for approval of the consent agenda? Do I have a second? Thank you. All in favor? Okay, approved. Do we have any other business?
No other business at this time,
Public comment?
and no public comment.
Okay, then is there a motion for adjournment? Do I have a second? All in favor? Meeting adjourned.